Hi, I'm Phil. I'm here to share with you what it's like living with end-stage renal failure. When I started recording this video, I really thought it was just going to be another story about a breast cyst, which is bad enough in its own right. However, this became eventually what I think were probably the worst couple of weeks of the year for me. And given that we had just buried my father a few days before it all started, that's saying something. Things that are frustrating or inconvenient for people with a normal healthy body can become a really big deal when you've got a chronic condition like end-stage renal failure. So yeah, let's get on with the story and see how that plays out. So about 18 months or 2 years ago, I had a series of trips to ED with blood in my urine. The end result was that the last doctor I saw at ED about this said, look, if your urine's looking like Merlot, come and see us straight away. If it's looking like anything less, yeah, it's okay, you'll be fine. But just to be safe, I was referred for a urology check, which I've talked about a little bit in the video that I'll put in the link below. In the description below. And since then, off and on, every now and then I get a little bit of blood in my urine. I mean, there's always blood there, but it's visible blood that I'm talking about. So every now and then I'll get a bit and then it'll go away and it'll come back. So I'll go a month or so with anything happening, and maybe 2 or 3 times in a week, and then, you know, it's gone. However, today has been a bit different. So as you can see, hopefully, it's not quite Merlot, but it's quite a dark rosé. So I've got 3 options. I'm kind of sitting on the fence about ED, which is option 1, because of the comment that doctor made, but this has been going on for, I'm guesstimating, about 10 hours. So that's quite a lot of blood I've been losing. So I don't just want to do nothing. I could call Healthline, which is like a medical helpline in New Zealand. It's staffed by a number of different people, but you usually end up with a registered nurse. It's a great service, especially for families with young kids who just aren't certain what to do in various medical situations. However, for me, I've got failing organs, my kidneys, and so they will take a detailed set of observations over the phone and then say, well, I think we need to err on the side of caution and you need to go to ED. So I know what the outcome is going to be from that. So I'm not doing that. Fortunately, I am scheduled to see my GP this afternoon. I'm supposed to see her to get my quarterly prescription for various medications. But I'm going to take this bottle along and give her something else to talk about as well. I think she's going to say one of 3 things. So the benefit of seeing her is she knows me better than Healthline or the ED staff do. So she's either going to say, oh no, you should be all right, which I think is unlikely. Or she's going to say, oh, you know, give it another 6 hours or whatever. And if it's still happening, then probably take a trip up to ED. Or she's going to say, what do you think you're doing? Get your butt out of that seat and get to ED now. I'm picking the 3rd one, to be honest, which kind of suggests I should get up to ED, but I do need to get my meds, and I'm not absolutely certain that's what's going to happen. So when I know what she said, I'll update you and let you know. So I'm back from the doctor. Actually, I'm back from the doctor and I've had about an hour and a half sleep. There were a couple of symptoms I discussed with her, which I don't think I mentioned in the first part of this video. One of those was that I've been getting quite intense pains in my flank. That in and of itself is not something terribly unusual, but combined with the blood in the urine is potentially concerning. I also have been feeling quite a bit of pressure in my bladder, which is unusual. So anyhow, we had this discussion. She did a dipstick in my urine sample and it looks like there's a bit of an infection, so she's started me on antibiotics. We're just waiting for the pharmacy to finish with them so that my wonderful wife can go and collect them. But she was also quite concerned by the symptoms because, as she put it, I looked like I was a bit off, and to be honest, I feel a bit off. My wonderful wife does not usually come into appointments with me at the GP because they're normally run-of-the-mill stuff like getting more meds and that sort of thing. But on this occasion she did, and the doctor completely ignored me and said to her, "You need to watch him overnight, and if you get concerned, you need to call an ambulance." So clearly she's a bit concerned. She's also sent my blood sample off to the lab to get checked out. So we don't know exactly what's going on. The doctor doesn't and we don't, but just playing it a bit safe. So we'll see how we go once I get on those meds, and we'll see what the lab says about the urine test, and we'll go from there.
As you can see, I'm on dialysis. Now, because I'm losing a lot of blood at the moment, I've had to make a small change to my dialysis setup. And that is, normally I'd have an initial burst, I guess, of 1.5 milliliters of heparin, and then 1 milliliter every hour. So today it's just 1.0. So 1 milliliter of heparin to start, and then 1 every hour. The reason being is we don't want my blood getting any thinner than it is if I'm bleeding in some way internally. I've also started the antibiotics that my doctor gave me, and depending on how they go, we'll wait and see tomorrow if things are starting to improve. Got to give it, say, 48 hours to kick in. If they're not, then we'll assess what other steps we need to take. In the meantime, I've had a bit of a fever today. I've been really cold, actually. It is cooler weather than we have had of late, but it's still not bad for early December in New Zealand. I've got my heater cranked up in the room where I'm doing dialysis, and my wonderful wife is putting the fire on in the lounge because she's concerned I'm going to get too cold. So obviously something's not quite right in my body. So here's hoping the antibiotics deal with it. I guess we'll find out.
It's now 12:30 on Thursday, so it's a couple of days since I started taking the antibiotic, giving it a bit of time to kick in. I suspect that the antibiotic and regular uses of paracetamol have held off the worst effects of any infection that may be going on. I still feel like I've got to get temperature now and then, but it's nothing like it was on Tuesday when I went and saw the doctor. So that's good news. The bad news is that I'm still peeing blood. So we're into the 4th day now. So 3rd day ended, dark 100 this morning sometime. So we're into day 4, and the blood's starting to look a bit more like Merlot than Rosé. So I'm just getting ready to head off to ED, or I should say we are, because this involves my wife as well. she comes along to make sure I don't get brain fog and forget stuff, but also because she's awesome. And she just wants to keep an eye on me. So I'm hoping that they'll run a scan or something and say, oh yeah, we figured that out, and we may have a way to deal with this or not. But there's a possibility I will be admitted. That'll suck if I'm admitted. I really don't like spending time in hospital. But it is a possibility. So I have prepared an overnight bag, and there's not much to it. I mean, it's got a change of clothes, and it's got my medication in it. Normally when you're in hospital, they will provide the medication out of their pharmacy, but last time I was in hospital, we discovered that at that time, one of the medications that I was taking for blood pressure, they didn't have. And so my wonderful wife had to go home, which is half an hour away, and come back with a supply of meds. So I'm going to take a couple of days supply of medications with me. As I say, hopefully I'll be back this afternoon or this evening. We're going during the afternoon rather than the evening because we hope ED won't be as busy, but don't know. And I'll update you when I know what's happening. My wonderful wife wants me to tell you I'm not dead. What's actually happened is I've had a CT scan and a bladder scan and no one can find anything wrong. So the assumption is being made that one or more of my cysts have ruptured, and that's pushing the blood through into my urine. I did ask the doctor if this carrying on for losing this much blood through my urine for a long period is going to cause problems, and she was quite happy to say that she's seen people go on for weeks with urine the same colour as mine with no negative impact. So all I've got to look out for now is if I get a fever. That's about it. So I'm just waiting for the nurse to come take the line out of my arm because, oops, you can't see that. Now you can see it. Because I don't want to go home with that. And then we're heading off, and I'm very relieved not to be spending the night in hospital. It's Sunday, which makes it 5 days since I first went to the doctor with blood in my urine. There've been a couple of occasions when I thought maybe it was sorting itself out, but I was wrong. You may remember from the video where I had a breast cyst, and I'll put the link in the description in case you haven't seen it. But in that video, there's two, or at least two, if not three times when I came on camera and said, "Oh, I'm getting better," and then the next thing I said was, "No, I'm not." And my experience with damage to cysts has been that it takes about a week to clear up. So we've got another couple of days to go, and who knows? This may take longer. This may just take the normal week. Freudian slip there. But yeah, we'll see how we are on Tuesday when it's been a week, and we'll go from there. It's Monday morning. Only just. It's about 5 to midday. I had a realization last night, and it was something I hadn't come across before. So, for the last 2 nights, when I've gone to the loo before going to bed, there's been no visible blood in my urine. But when I get up in the middle of the night to go to the loo, it's back again. And in quantities to match when I went to the hospital. So I'm figuring lying in bed is putting pressure on whatever damage there is in my cysts. So I slept last night in this chair. Not the best sleep I've had, but no blood in my urine this morning. Uh, one drop sort of later morning, but nothing like what it had been. So I'm taking that as a win that we're heading in the right direction. Now, this isn't, I guess, surprising. I just hadn't considered it. When kidneys are as big as mine, I cannot sleep comfortably. That's just the way it is. If I lie on my side, my kidneys all slide down to one side. Um, they put pressure on the ribs, or they rub on the ribs and on the sides of my body. If I lie on my back, they will rub on the back of my ribs and sometimes the sides as well. So today I'm getting the same pain I've been getting since we've had this blood in the urine, but hopefully we're on a track to a solution. So I'm going to sleep in this chair for the next couple of nights, and we'll see what happens there. But I'm hopeful.
It's been a week since my last update, I think, and that's quite a bit longer than I was expecting. A lot of stuff has happened, and it was Christmas, and I prefer to spend Christmas with my family, so I haven't done any recording over the last few days. But let me explain to you not just what's happened physically with my body, because there's been a bit of that, but also how it's impacted my Christmas. My last few Christmases, I've been adjusting to the fact that I can't eat a good chunk of the really nice food that's spread out for the family, and I guess I'm getting to the point that that's just the way life is, although it's still disappointing. But this Christmas, other things happened, which impacted the day for me anyway. So I slept for 3 nights in my recliner. There were a couple of times in the afternoon where I was so exhausted I just crashed out on the bed. True to form, when I got up again, there was blood in my urine. So Christmas Eve was the first night in 4 nights when I slept in my bed, got up the morning, fantastic Christmas present. The blood in my urine appeared to have disappeared. That's good. It's come and gone slightly since then, but it's pretty much gone by now. So that's a wonderful outcome. Unfortunately, in the interim, on the Monday, so the Monday before Christmas, while I was on dialysis, completely out of the blue, I had this excruciatingly painful, very powerful, very explosive bout of diarrhea. Now, you can probably appreciate that that's a bit awkward when you're connected to a machine by needles in your arm. It's possible to disconnect and pause your treatment, get up, go to the toilet, come back and reconnect. So I paused the treatment, and I was in a bit of a hurry and in quite a bit of pain. So I forgot to do an important thing, and that was to start a blood pump before I left the chair. And the idea of that is you get the blood continuing to circulate within the machine, not in your body, but within the machine, so that it minimizes the chances of blood clots. But I forgot to do that. So I went to the loo and dealt with things that needed dealing with, and got back 10 minutes later, and the machine was saying the blood pump has been stopped too long. What that basically means is I couldn't reconnect without doing a whole lot of relining and that sort of stuff. I started trying to do that, but to be honest, I was so exhausted. Remembering at this point, I hadn't slept in my bed the night before. I'd just lost a whole lot of extra fluid. Plus, I was in the middle of a dialysis session. In the middle, getting towards the. So in the end, on that particular day, I missed 42 or 48 minutes of my dialysis session. Not a good idea to miss it, but if you can get your whole dialysis session the next time, you're generally okay. So I had this diarrhea thing for several days. In fact, it didn't stop until we got to partway through Christmas Day. So that meant I couldn't eat a lot, and any fluid I was taking in was just going in. On top of that, I had intermittent bouts of fever. My temperature during these times was fluctuating between about 37.5 and 38 degrees. Now, the doctor, when I went to ED the previous week, had said, if you get a fever 38 or above, come in. And there was one point where my temperature stayed at 38 for about half an hour. And I thought I was going to have to call the ambulance. One of the impacts of this illness was that I became really weak. Now, I know that at some point in my life, barring a transplant or some other miracle, I'm going to be needing help with things like showering, that sort of thing, because keeping my balance or maybe having the strength to do it is going to be too much. I'm kind of expecting that to happen in 20 years plus. So it was very frustrating and demoralizing this week when I was, for a couple of days, so weak. And when I got out of the shower, I could barely stand up. I didn't have a hope of drying myself. And I had to get my wonderful wife to come in and dry me and help me get dressed. Yeah, it was a bit of a glimpse into the future, I guess, but kind of added to the weight in the whole thing. So it hadn't been a particularly great lead up to Christmas, to be honest. And there were a few other factors as well. So now let me be clear that I understand being sick over Christmas sucks. It doesn't matter whether it's the flu or a headache or a diarrhea or what. But when you've got a condition like end-stage renal failure, the suckiness increases. So I had to consider that if I needed to go to ED or call the ambulance or whatever, if I made the wrong decision and I didn't, it was possible that I was going to get really, really sick. And extreme possibility of that is that I would die, although one would hope I would be smart enough to get looked at before that happened. And in the case of Christmas this year, this is the first Christmas for our family since my dad had died just a few weeks before. And I really didn't want to make my family members, and especially my mum, remember this Christmas as being one where they spent time at ED or hospital or whatever because I was sick. So the decision as to whether or not to go to hospital, despite the fact that it was, a reasonably, potentially high-risk situation, that decision was very hard for me. In the end, I'm glad I made the right decision and I didn't go. So that was, that's a good thing. And I did eventually recover, and so that's great. But the fact that I was so sick and at times feeling a bit feverish and trying to be a good host because Christmas was at our place and enjoy my family's company. It was hard work. It was great, but it was hard work. And then finally, as sometimes happens around Christmas, we had a bit of conflict in our family, and it's never good when people who love each other are in conflict. But they just all sat on top of what else was going on. But I was at the point on Christmas Day where this is just too hard. I don't know what else to say. It was between the sickness and the fact that I had this condition and I'm going to have to do dialysis again tomorrow. And I'm feeling really unwell and this conflict with someone I really care about. And it all just, and my date's not here. Uh, it all just was overwhelming. And a certain percentage of that was directly due to the fact that I'm an end stage renal failure. Because if you've got a bit of diarrhea over Christmas, it's generally just, well, that's sucky. It's not, should I be going to hospital? How sick am I going to get if I don't? And you're not thinking, I have to do dialysis tomorrow. I mean, we made it through, but I, I, I just need to say as well that this is really hard for me, but my wonderful wife, it was, I think, harder for her. She did everything she could to look after me, and I was at times not very grateful. And she nonetheless dealt with all the stuff I was dealing with, dealt with me being sick, dealt with being the hostess for Christmas, which is a lot more work for her, and dealt with me being ungrateful and this family conflict and carried on. So I guess what I'm saying is, while for someone in my position with renal failure, Christmas is really hard. It's not easy on those who care for you either.
Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoyed it or found it interesting, I'd appreciate it if you could hit like. If you want to know more about what it's like living with end-stage renal failure, then go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.